Hey, history lovers and pest control enthusiasts. Welcome back to the channel where we dig into the wild, weird, and downright genius ways our ancestors survived the toughest times. Today, we're diving into a topic that's equal parts gross and fascinating: 20 easy ways medieval peasants got rid of rats and mice. Picture this. It's the Middle Ages. Rats are everywhere, munching on your food, spreading disease, and making life miserable. But these peasants, they weren't just sitting around complaining, they got creative. From killer cats to spicy herbs and some seriously bizarre tricks, we're about to uncover how they fought back against these furry invaders. And stick around, because I've got a bonus method that'll make you rethink everything you know about medieval pest control. Drop a comment right now. What's the weirdest pest control trick you've ever heard of? Let's get into it. 1. The Mighty Mouser. Cats as medieval superheroes. Let's kick things off with the ultimate medieval pest control weapon: cats. But these weren't your fluffy, Instagram-famous felines. These were lean, mean, rat-killing machines. A good mouser was worth its weight in gold, literally. In the 1300s, during the Black Death, top-tier cats fetched prices equivalent to a month's wages for a peasant. Stealing one, that could land you in hot water with the village sheriff. The best mousers had short tails, stocky builds, and a stare that screamed, "I'm here to end rats." Peasants tested kittens by tossing a piece of string. If a kitten pounced like a tiny ninja, it was a keeper. Lazy cats, they were out the door faster than you can say extra mouth to feed. Some villages even kept cat scoreboards, tracking how many rats their star mousers caught. One legend tells of a cat named Shadow who cleared 60 rats in a month, earning her owner free drinks at the tavern for a year. Talk about a perfect side hustle. Want to know the craziest part? Peasants trained their cats like athletes, releasing live mice in barns for practice. So, next time you see a cat chasing a laser pointer, just know it's got medieval pest control in its DNA. Comment below. Would you trust a medieval cat to guard your pantry? 2. Smoke signals. Fumigating rat hideouts. Medieval peasants discovered that smoke was a powerful way to drive rats out of their homes. They'd burn bundles of damp straw or pungent herbs like rosemary and sage in areas where rats nested, creating thick, choking clouds. The smoke suffocated rats or forced them to flee through exits where traps or cats waited. One 1370s record describes a village clearing an entire barn of rats by smoking it out for a day. It was like a medieval fumigation service, minus the hazmat suits. The trick was to keep the fire controlled. Nobody wanted to burn down their house just to get rid of rodents. Would you try smoking out pests, or is that too risky? 3. Ferrets, the sneaky rat assassins. If cats were the frontline soldiers, ferrets were the medieval equivalent of special ops. These slinky, tube-shaped terrors could squeeze into rat burrows and tight spaces where cats couldn't go. Think of them as the Navy SEALs of pest control: small, fast, and relentless. Training a ferret was no joke. Peasants tied tiny bells to their ferrets to track them as they darted through walls and under floors. A well-trained ferret could clear a granary of rats in hours, sending rodents fleeing in panic. One 14th century record brags about a ferret named Whisker who took down 20 rats in a single afternoon. The trick: ferrets didn't just kill, they terrified rats so much that the survivors bolted, often straight into traps or waiting cats. Here's a wild fact: some peasants paired ferrets with cats for a deadly tag team. Ferrets flushed rats out, and cats finished the job. It was like a medieval Avengers crossover. What do you think? Would you hire a ferret for pest control? Let me know in the comments. 4. Sticky traps. Medieval glue boards. Long before modern glue traps, peasants created their own sticky snares using pine resin or boiled tree sap. They spread the gooey mixture on flat stones or wooden boards, often baiting them with bits of bread or cheese. Rats would get stuck, unable to escape. The medieval version of a glue trap. A 1350s manor account mentions a single sticky board catching 15 rats in one night. Kids were tasked with checking these traps, turning it into a grim but satisfying chore. The downside: cleaning the boards was a messy job. What's the stickiest situation you've ever dealt with for pest control? Share below. 5. Spicy herbs, the original rat repellent. Now, let's talk about a method that's cheap, natural, and smells way better than a rat-infested barn: spicy herbs. Medieval peasants figured out that rats hated certain smells, so they turned their homes into a rodent-repelling perfume factory. Mint was the MVP. Its menthol scent was like kryptonite to rats. Peasants crushed fresh mint leaves and scattered them around doorways, windows, and grain stores. Rats took one whiff and said, "Nope, I'm out." Garlic was another heavy hitter. Peasants soaked rags in garlic juice and hung them from rafters, creating a smell barrier no rat dared cross. Wormwood, a bitter herb used in absinthe, was so effective that rats would rather starve than deal with its stench, and mustard seeds. Ground into powder and sprinkled at thresholds, they were like a spicy moat for rodents. One clever peasant recipe from the 1400s combined mint, garlic, wormwood, and mustard seeds with a splash of vinegar. It was the medieval version of get out and stay out. Bonus: these herbs doubled as air fresheners in homes where bads were. Let's say, optional, drop a comment. Which herb would you use to keep rats away? 6. Hedgehogs, the unexpected rat hunters. Move over. Cats. Hedgehogs were the unsung heroes of medieval pest control. These spiky little creatures were natural rodent hunters, patrolling barns and gardens at night. Peasants would encourage wild hedgehogs to stick around by leaving out scraps of food or building small shelters from straw. A 1420s English record praises a hedgehog named Prickles for keeping a granary rat-free for a season. Unlike cats, hedgehogs didn't need training, they just did their thing. Bonus: they were adorable. Would you adopt a hedgehog for pest control? Let me know. 7. Deadly DIY. Medieval rat poison. When herbs weren't enough, peasants got hardcore with homemade rat poison. This wasn't your modern, lab-tested stuff. It was a wild mix of whatever deadly ingredients they could find. Arsenic was the go-to, mixed with cheese or fat to make irresistible rat bait. Hemlock, a toxic plant, was another favorite, often blended with honey to trick rats into gobbling it up. Some even used ground glass, believing it would shred a rat's insides. Yikes. But here's the catch: these poisons were as dangerous to humans as they were to rats. One 1329 record tells of a family poisoned after rats dragged arsenic-laced bait into their flour. Villagers sometimes banned arsenic after kids or pets got sick, but desperate peasants kept using it in secret. It was like the Breaking Bad of the Middle Ages, but with worse safety protocols. The downside: poison didn't solve the problem completely. Rats spread faster than you could poison them. Still, it was a bold move. What's the riskiest pest control method you've ever tried? Share it below. 8. Bitter baits. Poison-free repellents. Peasants didn't always go for lethal poison. They used bitter baits to make food unappealing to rats. They'd soak grain or bread in extracts of bitter plants like rue or tansy, which rats found disgusting, but humans could tolerate in small doses. These baits were scattered in storage areas, tricking rats into thinking the food was spoiled. A 1390s text claims this method cut rat theft by half in one household. It was a clever, non-toxic way to protect supplies. Would you try making your food taste bad to keep pests away? 9. Pit traps. The medieval rat hotel. Medieval peasants were crafty in their fight against rats, and pit traps were a brilliantly simple solution for those seeking a safe, effective method. The concept was pure genius. Dig a small hole along walls or near rat holes. Cover it with a flimsy disguise like straw or cloth, and let gravity do the rest. No poison, no need to feed a cat, just a trap that outsmarted rodents. To ensure rats couldn't escape, peasants lined the pits with slick clay or greased them with animal fat, creating a slippery prison for their tiny foes. Kids turned checking these traps into a morning ritual, treating it like a medieval video game complete with squeaking boss battles. A 1340s manor record boasts that a network of 20 pits caught 60 rats in just 1 week, proving their efficiency. Some peasants upped the ante with a clever twist. They'd balance food on a spinning stick over the pit. When a rat lunged for the bait, the stick would flip, sending it tumbling into the trap. A rodent prank show straight out of the Middle Ages. The method's reusability and low cost made it a peasant favorite, but it had a mischievous side too. Some used captured rats for petty revenge, dumping them over a neighbor's fence as medieval shade. This eco-friendly trap showed how ingenuity could triumph over pests. Would you dig a pit trap to catch pests in your home, or is outwitting rodents with gravity too much effort? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear about the cleverest trap you'd set or any neighborly pranks you'd pull. 10. Water traps. Drowning rat invaders. For a low-tech but brutal solution, peasants used water traps. They'd place buckets of water near rat paths, partially covering them with a board baited with food. Rats would climb up, slip, and fall into the water, unable to climb out. Some peasants added a layer of oil on the water to make escape even harder. A 1360s French record describes a single water trap catching 12 rats in a week. It was cheap, reusable, and didn't risk poisoning anyone. What's the most creative trap you've ever set? Drop it in the comments. 11. Noisemakers. Scaring rats with sound. Believe it or not, medieval peasants were way ahead of their time with sound-based rat repellents. They noticed rats fled during loud events, like village festivals or blacksmith hammering, so they got creative. Rat whistles, made from hollow reeds or bones, produced high-pitched sounds that drove rats nuts, but were barely audible to humans. Imagine a peasant standing in a barn, blowing a bone flute like a wannabe rock star, all to scare off rodents. Metal noisemakers were another hit. Copper sheets hung from strings that clanged when the wind blew. It was like living in a haunted house, but it kept rats on edge. Kids were often tasked with banging pots or stomping near rat nests, turning pest control into a noisy game. One 1400s guide even suggested changing up the sounds to keep rats from getting used to them. Talk about medieval psychology. Did it work? Modern science says yes, rats hate unpredictable noises. But imagine the neighbors complaining about your midnight pot banging session. What's the loudest way you've ever scared off a pest? Let's hear it. 12. Guard dogs. Tiny terriers to the rescue. In the medieval war against rats, while cats often stole the spotlight, small terrier dogs were unsung heroes, delivering ferocious pest control with boundless energy. Breeds resembling the ancestors of modern Jack Russells were bred specifically for rodent hunting, fearlessly diving into burrows and tight spaces to chase down rats. Peasants trained these pint-sized powerhouses to patrol granaries, kitchens, and barns, where they'd snatch rats faster than you could say fetch. A 1410s chronicle celebrates a terrier named Snap, who impressively dispatched 30 rats in a single day, earning his keep as a four-legged exterminator. Unlike cats, which operated on their own terms, terriers could be trained to work on command, making them reliable partners in the fight against rodents. Their relentless drive and keen instincts turned them into a peasant's best friend, especially in homes where food supplies were precious. These dogs didn't just kill rats, they disrupted nests and scared survivors away, offering a dynamic defense. The training was simple: expose young terriers to rats, reward their catchers, and watch them become medieval rat-killing rock stars. This method showcases the resourcefulness of peasants who harnessed the natural talents of terriers to protect their livelihoods. It's a testament to the bond between humans and dogs, even in the toughest times. Would you choose a scrappy terrier over a cat for pest control, or do you think felines still reign supreme? Share your pick in the comments below. Let's hear about your favorite furry pestbuster or any wild pest control stories you've got. 13. Fake predators. The medieval scarecrow for rats. Medieval peasants were masters of outsmarting rats, and one cunning strategy was using fake predators to wage psychological warfare. They carved wooden owls, snakes, and hawks, designed to trick rats into believing a deadly hunter was lurking nearby. These weren't just rough cutouts, some were impressively detailed, adorned with real feathers or painted patterns to heighten the illusion. A well-placed wooden snake hidden under straw could make a rat freeze, questioning its life choices. This low-cost tactic turned simple craftsmanship into rodent deterrent, showcasing peasant ingenuity. However, rats are clever, and a ruse didn't always last. They eventually realized the decoys were harmless, sometimes even gnawing on them for fun. One 1400s account describes a wooden owl so cute it resembled a pitiful pigeon, barely scaring a fly. To counter this, peasants became medieval interior decorators with a vendetta, moving decoys weekly to keep rats on edge. Some took it further, crafting motion-activated decoys, like a hawk that rocked in the breeze, adding a touch of menace. A 1390s record notes a barn staying rat-free for weeks thanks to a rotating cast of fake predators. This method highlights the peasants' resourcefulness. using observation and creativity to exploit rats' instincts. Though not a permanent fix, it was a brilliant, eco-friendly way to buy time. Would you carve a fake predator to spook pests in your home, or is crafting creepy decoys too much hassle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear about the sneakiest way you'd scare off unwanted critters. 14. Reflective tricks, mirrors and shiny objects. Medieval peasants were clever in their fight against rats, and one surprisingly creative tactic was using shiny objects to scare them off. They noticed rats shied away from bright, reflective surfaces, so they got crafty. Peasants would hang polished metal scraps, broken pottery shards, or even bits of glass near food stores, where they'd catch sunlight or candlelight to create startling flashes. Some went further, placing shallow pans of water to produce flickering reflections that spooked rodents. A 1380s German text boasts that a granary stayed rat-free for months after hanging a dozen tin strips, turning the space into a medieval disco ball designed to terrify rats. This method was pure genius, cheap, reusable, and requiring no upkeep. The unpredictable glints of light confused rats, making them think twice about approaching. It worked best in well-lit areas, like near windows or candles, where reflections could shine brightest. For peasants with limited resources, this was a perfect solution, transforming everyday scraps into a rodent deterrent. It also showed their keen observation of rat behavior, exploiting the animal's aversion to sudden, unfamiliar stimuli. The shiny objects trick is a shining example of medieval ingenuity, proving that even simple solutions could make a big impact. It's a quirky reminder of how people used their wits to protect their food in a tough world. Would you hang shiny metal or mirrors to keep pests away, or do you have a flashy idea? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear about the most dazzling way you've tackled pests. 15. Gross, but effective, human byproducts. Brace yourself, this one's not for the faint of heart. Medieval peasants used human byproducts like hair, urine, and sweat to keep rats away. Hair from combs was stuffed into bags and placed near food stores. Urine-soaked rags were hung at entry points, with some texts claiming male urine, especially after eating garlic, was the most effective. Fingernail clippings scattered like confetti near grain sacks. Why did it work? Rats instinctively avoid strong human scents, associating them with danger. It was gross, but it was free, and for poor peasants, that was a win. One 1400s guide even suggested peeing in a corner of your property to create a rat-repelling perimeter. Medieval landscaping. Anyone? Drop a comment. Would you try this, or is it too nasty? 16. Thorny barriers. Nature's barbed wire. Medieval peasants were resourceful in their battle against rats, and one brilliantly simple method was using thorny branches as natural barriers. They'd gather prickly branches from plants like hawthorn or bramble and pile them around granary walls, doorways, or known rat holes. These spiky obstacles formed a natural, rodent-repelling obstacle course that rats despised. The sharp spines deterred rats from squeezing through, forcing them to seek easier paths, often straight into traps or away from food stores. A 1400s English manor documented a significant drop in rat sightings after surrounding their grain stores with these thorn piles, proving the method's effectiveness. This approach was a medieval win-win. It was completely free, using readily available plants, and eco-friendly, requiring no poisons or complex tools. It also doubled as a deterrent for other pests, like mice or wandering critters, making it a versatile defense. The beauty of thorny barriers lay in their low maintenance. Once piled up, they needed little upkeep, providing long-term protection. For peasants scraping by, this was a practical, cost-effective way to safeguard precious food supplies from relentless rodents. The use of thorny branches highlights the ingenuity of medieval pest control, turning nature into a weapon against invaders. It's a reminder of how people leveraged their environment to solve problems with minimal resources. Would you pile thorny branches around your home to keep pests out, or is there a pricklier solution you'd try? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear about the most creative or spiky way you've tackled pests. 17. Smarter storage. Outsmarting rats. Prevention is better than cure, and medieval peasants nailed it with smarter storage. They hung food in sacks from ceiling beams, often with metal discs on the ropes to stop climbing rats. Clay pots were sealed with wax, and wooden chests were coated with resin to make them rat-proof. Elevated platforms stood on legs topped with wide discs, like tiny fortresses for food. The slickest trick, greased pole storage. Poles coated in animal fat were impossible for rats to climb, leaving them staring longingly at the food above. One monastery in the 1400s cut grain losses from 20% to 5% just by using these methods. It was proof that sometimes the best offense is a good defense. What's your go-to way to keep pests out of your food? Share below. 18. Decoy nests. Tricking rats into traps. Medieval peasants were cunning in their fight against rats, and one clever tactic was building decoy nests to outsmart them. This wasn't just pest control, it was rodent psychology at its finest. Peasants would craft inviting nests from straw, cloth, or other soft materials, strategically placing them in corners or near food stores. To make them irresistible, they'd sprinkle grain or crumbs on top, luring rats into what seemed like a cozy hideout. But here's the twist. These nests were traps in disguise. Hidden inside were pit traps with slick sides, sticky boards coated in resin, or even a waiting ferret ready to pounce. It was a medieval sting operation, tricking rats into feeling safe before springing the trap. A 1370s record highlights the success of this method, noting that one decoy nest caught 25 rats in a single month. The brilliance lay in its simplicity. Rats, driven by instinct to seek shelter and food, walked right into the ambush. This approach required minimal resources, making it ideal for poor peasants who couldn't afford fancy solutions like trained animals or poisons. It also showed their deep understanding of rat behavior, turning the rodents' habits against them. While not a permanent fix, decoy nests were a low-cost, high-reward way to reduce infestations. This method reveals the ingenuity of medieval problem-solving, blending creativity with practicality. It's a testament to how far people went to protect their scarce resources in a harsh world. Would you craft a fake nest to trick pests in your home, or is setting up a rodent con too much work? Share your thoughts below. Let's hear how sneaky you'd get to outsmart a rat. 19. The last resort. Eating rats when all else failed and famine hit. Medieval peasants turned rats from pests to protein. During desperate times, rats were hunted, stewed with herbs, and even sold in markets. A 1300s chronicle describes rat meat fetching higher prices than chicken during a famine. Medical texts warned to cook it thoroughly, but they admitted it kept people alive. An average rat weighed half a pound small, but enough to make a difference. Peasants got creative, adding whatever vegetables they had to make it palatable. It wasn't gourmet, but it was survival. Medieval Yelp review. Rat stew, for 5 stars. Tastes like desperation, but I'm not dead yet. Would you eat a rat to survive? Be honest in the comments. 20. Community rat hunts. Village-wide pest control. When rats got out of control, entire villages banded together for community rat hunts. Armed with sticks, dogs, and homemade traps, peasants would sweep through barns, fields, and homes, flushing out rodents. These hunts often turned into social events, with kids competing to catch the most rats and adults sharing ale afterward. A 1390s chronicle describes a village catching 200 rats in one day, followed by a feast. Thankfully, not rat-themed. It was teamwork at its medieval best. Would you join a neighborhood pest hunt? Let me know. Bonus method. Rat charming rituals. In medieval times, peasants faced relentless rat infestations, but one bizarre method stands out: rat charming rituals. Desperate to protect their food and homes, some believed they could convince rats to leave through persuasion. This wasn't just wishful thinking, it was a full-on ritual. Peasants would place offerings, like bread or grain, outside their villages, hoping to lure rats away from stored food. Others took it further, reciting rhythmic chants or prayers to command the rodents to depart. The wildest part, some actually wrote letters to the rats. A famous 1400s German village left a loaf of bread with a note that read, "Dear rats, take this and go." Imagine the scene. A peasant, quill in hand, drafting up a late eviction notice for rodents. This might sound like medieval madness, but there's logic behind it. The offerings could distract rats, drawing them away from homes and granaries. Chants and rituals likely boosted morale, giving peasants a sense of agency in a harsh world where they had little control. Plus, the act of leaving food outside might have unintentionally baited rats into traps or predator territory. While not foolproof, these rituals were a creative blend of psychology and superstition, reflecting the ingenuity of people with limited resources. Rat charming wasn't just about pest control, it was a cultural quirk that showed how far peasants went to survive. It's a reminder that even in tough times, humans find hope in the strangest places. Would you try sweet-talking your pests with a letter or a snack, or is that too out there? Drop your thoughts below. Let's see how wild you'd get to keep rats away. And there you have it, to 20+1. Incredible ways medieval peasants tackled their rat and mouse problems. From ninja cats to greasy poles and even eating the enemy, these folks were the original DIY pest control experts. Which method surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. If you loved this deep dive into medieval life, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more wild history content. Share this video with a friend who's got a rat problem. They might just try the garlic trick. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.